is in the aging process, working on the situations that are occurring as they are occurring, or even before they occur, as a preventative approach to minimize or even eliminate a lot of the effects of aging. So aging, yes, there's time. Time does go by. We move on in time. But there are actually two kinds of aging. There's chronological age over time, right? As we age, we celebrate more birthdays, etc. But there's physiological age, right? So physiological age has many determining factors. It's really a conglomerate of many, many issues affecting us over time. And the sum result of that effect is essentially what we call aging, and what I call the syndrome of aging. I don't accept it as a given, and I'm not alone by any means. There are many, many studies that are supporting the science behind aging and the addressing of the issues of aging in such a way that we are looking at or on the verge of, and possibly already have passed somewhat the threshold where we can reverse aging. Not just stop it from continuing, but actually reverse some of the process of aging. Now, can we reverse all of it? Well, we'd have to be very good at what I'm talking about to do that. But can we improve the quality of life of each individual? Can we, say, have people living to 120, 130, 150, 160 perhaps, and being like they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s in terms of their health status? This is the kind of thing I'm getting at. So what I'm looking to do is not make us all immortal, although maybe someday that will happen. But what I'm looking at is improving the quality of life for everyone as we live longer, wonderful lives, longer, more quality to the life. Not just accepting the things the signs and symptoms that we've associated with aging, because they're not a necessity. I'll give you a quick example. I have a lady that started seeing me, eons ago, about, say, 5-6 years ago, something like that. That's not exactly eons, but, and she started to see me based on her inability to get out of her seat. Like getting out of the car was really difficult. Getting up from a sitting position was very difficult. She had rather severe osteoarthritis in her hip area. Well, we certainly worked on that for a period of about 6 months or so. And she had been in conventional treatment for some weight issues she was having related to thyroid function and metabolism. And then I helped her past that point because she felt that it wasn't doing the job. So I started working on that aspect of it as well. So combined, by working on the issues, the causal factors, we actually got her to the point where now she's getting around, she can dance, she does all sorts of things. She gets up and down very easily, she gets around, and she lost about 50, 60 pounds. So we don't need to just accept this. And the lady is, let's just say above 60 in years. So, we don't have to just accept these things as part of aging. Osteoarthritis doesn't have to happen. It's not just degeneration. Our bodies can repair, but we've got to give them the tools. To give you some examples hormonally, that means, like, for example, for women, when estrogen is going down, it's important to address the estrogen. Well, also, And this is commonly known, a little more commonly known, that estrogen affects the bones, right? And when you get lower in estrogen, there's more of a tendency toward osteoporosis, right, as women age. And this is something that's addressed through HRT and different things for women. But estrogen is not the only factor there. Progesterone is a huge factor. In fact, estrogen simply helps to maintain bone. Progesterone, if that's getting low, which it does as well in menopause for women, as it goes down, you know, this is a major factor in bone mass, because progesterone actually helps to stimulate the activity of certain types of cells known as osteoblasts, which means that it helps build bone. In other words, it's involved in the repair of the bone. And this is a factor that's often left out in the approach and treatment of a woman when she's experiencing issues with bone mass. So if we can get to the root causes of these issues, like these decreasing hormones, we can reverse that status of bone mass and actually see improvement in such a way that they are actually physically younger than they were, essentially. I mean, they're younger in function, right? They're younger in their ability to get around. They're younger in the sense that, you know, a young kid can get around easily, right? Run around, etc., while they're closer to that. So that's a form, you could say, of anti-aging based on where they've been versus where they could be. All right. So last show where I talked about anti-aging, we discussed some of the aspects of aging. We just discussed telomeres, and which are the base material as a sort of tail of the DNA, which is the genetic material in each of our cells that encodes who we are, you know, the aspects involved in our form and function, both physiologically and anatomically, who we are. But the telomeres provide base material for the reproduction of cells, okay, to reproduce and it actually continue to do so over time. So when the telomeres are used, when that section is used up, what happens is over time it's used up to the extent that eventually it runs out. When it runs out, that is a form of apoptosis, or programmed cell death, is another way of putting that. So you run out of telomeres, you run out of the base material to reproduce the cells for the DNA, use in the DNA. And when that occurs, then you have cell death because it can't reproduce. So that is a form of aging. We also have debris that builds up over time in our cells. And if we're not cleansing well and regularly, if we're not cleansing our cells out, not cleansing our bodies, and we allow this debris to build up in our bodies, well, then our functionality goes down. You know, the performance of each of those individual cells is reduced, and the sum total of that is that our body becomes more sluggish, maybe more diseased, you know, because processes aren't working correctly in each of our cells. And when those processes are working poorly, say in our organs, we're going to see organ problems, right? Like liver, kidneys, pancreas, whatever it may be, even the heart. So this is another aspect of aging. We have oxidation which is damage that's occurring to our cells by way of free radicals that exist in our environment and many of the things that we're exposed to, and even internal metabolic processes that are occurring naturally create some of this damage. And so we need antioxidants. What are antioxidants? Antioxidants are the vitamins and minerals that provide, they're essentially donors of electrons to the molecules within our body. So these donors help to repair the damage done by free radicals that go through and strip off those electrons, creating ionization throughout our bodies and damaging our cell structures and so on. So antioxidants help to repair that damage. And those are, for example, some of the main ones are vitamins A, C, E, and mineral selenium, very important ones. But we have many of them. And there are many sources for antioxidation. There are sources that are surprising new sources that we keep discovering, right? We've talked about resveratrol in the past. There's astaxanthin. And by the way, astaxanthin is commonly what gives salmon its red color. Unlike the farm-raised salmon, I'm talking wild salmon, right? Farm-raised salmon, what's giving the salmon their red or pinkish color is ground down beetle juice from red beetles. That's what they're coloring the salmon with, if it's farm-raised. So if you're eating farm-raised salmon, you're eating beetle juice, literally. But in the wild, the astaxanthin occurs in algae, red algae. So they're eating this algae. The algae then gives them that reddish color. Salmon in its natural form is actually a gray fish. It's kind of interesting. So we have substances like astaxanthin, we have pycnogenol, which is a pine bark extract, which is a very good, very high potency antioxidant. We have grapeseed extract. So there are many of these types of things, and many of them are cyanidin types, like proanthocyanidins. Blueberries are known for the proanthocyanidins. Blueberry or bilberry, right? So there's many of these sources of antioxidants if we're both eating well, and when I say eating well, I'm talking mostly organic, right? I'm not talking about the farm-raised vegetables and fruit that are using only NPK soil, 3 ingredients to raise these plants, which is ridiculous because they don't have a lot of natural processes occurring there because of that. And then we end up shooting pesticides all over them. Plants naturally will create the defenses if you give them the right nutrients, just like human beings will improve and repair our internal processes if we give our bodies what they need. So part of anti-aging is preventative, right? Addressing what our bodies need to help us repair. As we go through time and we experience all sorts of different things that are affecting our bodies. We need to help with that repair. And, as Hippocrates said, let your food be your medicine be your food. If you can eat very good broad spectrum foods, where you have all the colors of the rainbow, you're getting all the various antioxidants, then you're going to fare better, especially if it's organic, where it really does have all of the proper nutrients, okay? Or at least you're doing better than the standard farming. So all of these aspects are included in anti-aging. And what I'd like to focus on today, and that was kind of a long introduction, but what I'd like to focus on today is nutritional perspectives on aging, specifically looking at some of the nutritional aspects of aging and how we can address them. And And I will be backing this up with an article in Tampa Bay Wellness Magazine, which you can take a look at some of the articles if you like. They're toward the back of each magazine in tampabaywellness.com is their website. You can take a look at the magazine articles. I'll be doing another one that deals with some of these nutritional processes involved in aging and how we can address them nutritionally. You know, how they affect our nutrition, as well as how we can use the right nutrition to take care of those, to help those out. And of course, I'm not trying, this show is not trying to prevent, cure, or treat disease. However, I'm giving you some information that you can use, right, to help yourself. And I've seen and heard of a lot of press that poo-poos some of these things. And I'll tell you, the science is really, really strong. So, you've got to look at where that research comes from, right? You see some research out there and you've got to wonder who's doing this, trying to cut down the nutritional industry, or herbal industry, or these types of things. Who might be doing that? So, this is strong stuff. And there are a lot of important processes going on that are very important to aging, including, obviously to our bodies, our muscle mass, the functionality of our hormones and how they affect our bodies, and neurologically, as well as, some of the things involved in the neural transmission, which is neurotransmitters. So there's many things here, but let's go ahead and take a little break, and then I'll start getting into all of these nutritional things going on. You're listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoair.com, WSPF Digital Broadcasting, and we'll be back.
I talked to a woman, and while you were talking, I kept on trying to remember who the hell it was. She's gonna come visit you. Oops. I figured. I just have that mute mic here.
WSPF Digital Broadcasting, and I'm Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DOM, Florida. And so we were talking about antioxidants just before the break and their involvement in anti-aging. And that's been something that's been known and studied for many decades. You know, in the era of Dirk Pearson, there was a lot going on, which was back in the 70s. And certainly with regard to orthomolecular medicine, orthomolecular areas that were generally kind of introduced or spearheaded by Linus Pauling, who won a couple of Nobel Prizes. So antioxidants are involved in many processes in the human body. Neurons and cerebrospinal fluid contain high amounts of the important antioxidant, ascorbic acid or vitamin C. And vitamin C is definitely one of the more potent antioxidants. However, there are some that are even 100 times more potent, such as astaxanthin. So vitamin C is an essential cofactor in enzymatic processes, especially since human beings lack the ability to derive vitamin C internally, which means to basically manufacture vitamin C from glucose due to the lack of a certain enzyme. It's called the Coulomb enzyme is not present in human beings, and this is why we cannot internally produce vitamin C. So we need to get it from our food, and that makes it even more important to eat all those fruits and vegetables that contain vitamin C. If you want an idea, if you're just looking from a point of view of color, quite often orange, red, and that range, but also even some greens have a lot of vitamin C. But there's also vitamin A is often in the orange-red area as well. So the process of methylation, which is important to energy production and the creation of certain forms of hormones in our bodies, is an important aspect of making sure you have the right nutrients. So we have methylation possibly disrupted by a lack of methyl donors, and particularly B vitamins such as methylcobalamin, niacin, and pyridoxine, which are vitamins B12, 3, and 6, are important there. Associations between vitamins B6, B9, and B12, that B9 being folate, homocysteine, and aging have been found. So we have this association with homocysteine and the production of homocysteine in our bodies. If we have a particular gene, especially, it's known as the MTHFR, a particular polymorphism, I suppose, of that particular gene is involved in this issue. So we may have elevated homocysteine, which can be involved in cognitive dysfunction. And it's also associated with cardio. You know, we go around checking everybody for cholesterol, but we don't check their homocysteine all the time. And this is an area that can be important to the inflammatory situation of affecting your cardio function. You know, if you're too inflamed, you're going to affect cardio function. Well, there's another measure known as CRP, which is C-reactive protein, which is a measure of inflammation because it's a protein that's created primarily in the body's response to the inflammation. So the more you get of it, the more inflamed your body is likely to be. So we have B vitamins and their deficiencies and elevated homocysteine levels directly correlated with cognitive dysfunction. And this is interesting. Alzheimer's and dementia can be involved here. So we have a lot of these kinds of issues involved in aging and memory issues, these kinds of things, and possibly confusion. This can be along the lines of dementia. B12 deficiency is common among the elderly, and sometimes is involved, like you can look at people and their behavior or their personalities a little bit. If they're really, really cranky, like this old cliche of the cranky old man, or the grumpy old man, you might want to look at the grumpy old man's B12, because it does affect that aspect of their behavior or personality. So it's common among the elderly, and another thing that's common among the elderly is the use of antacids, and specifically proton pump inhibitors, a particular type of antacid. These are likely to cause B12 deficiency. So if they're already having this issue of deficiency of B12, and then they're popping antacids, it can make the problem worse. Okay, so there's a nutritional aspect of aging and some of the effects that we see. CoQ10, or coenzyme Q10, is a vitamin that helps to energize every cell in the body and supports muscle function. By the way, coenzyme is essentially a term used for vitamins, as they are assisting the process of enzymatic action in the body. So that's part of what vitamins do. And so we have this relatively new vitamin. It's been seen for a few decades, known as CoQ10 or coenzyme Q10. That's important to energizing every cell in the body and supporting muscle function, and especially including the heart. So we have CoQ10, which is protective and helpful in energy production, in supporting muscle function, cardio function. It's neuroprotective, and especially in the dopamine producing neurons. So here we have a possibility that this could be involved in Parkinson's disorder, for example, because dopamine production is an important aspect of the issues related to Parkinson's disease. So CoQ10 could be very important in that aspect. A secondary effect of the common use of certain cholesterol drugs, statins particularly, is that there's a reduction in the levels of CoQ10. So due to the effects of statins on some precursors to CoQ10 production specifically. Genetic mutations can lead to a primary form of CoQ10 deficiency as well. So we have many issues that can affect through aging and other issues that occur with aging, or may occur with aging, that can affect your CoQ10 level. And then also we have the conventional drugs such as statins that reduce CoQ10 levels, as well as B12 levels, by the way, which I failed to mention earlier. CoQ10 is a cofactor in the electron transport chain in mitochondria. Now, mitochondria are the little energy factory parts of our cells that rely on CoQ10 as a cofactor in helping to support the electron transportation chain or transport chain in the mitochondria, which helps to create the energy and involves ATP production, which is adenosine triphosphate as well, affecting the energy level of each individual. So if an individual has a deficiency in CoQ10, energy levels suffer throughout the body, including the brain, skeletal muscles, and the heart. Additionally, a deficiency in tyrosine, which is an amino acid, an important amino acid, could lead to a CoQ10 deficiency, since tyrosine is a precursor in the biosynthesis of CoQ10. Tyrosine is also a precursor to dopamine production, by the way, which I was mentioning earlier, related to Parkinson's. So it's important to know that you're getting these nutrients. Antioxidant minerals play important roles as well. So one primary mineral there is selenium, as I mentioned earlier. It's an antioxidant mineral to neuronal and cognitive function that also affects thyroid hormone levels. High levels of selenium, along with zinc and copper, exist in a certain part of our brain that relates to memory function, which is the hippocampus. And elevated zinc can result in problems with iron, like iron deficiency, leading to reduced neuronal branching or spreading of the neurons and cognitive dysfunction. So getting it right is important, is what I'm getting at there. Zinc also blocks gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA receptors. GABA receptors are basically inhibitory. GABA itself is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So in other words, it's part of how you can kind of keep from allowing impulse to take over. And so zinc is a block to these receptors, so it can affect your excitability. So if somebody's really excitable, one of the things that can be checked is their zinc level. Another would be GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. And another possibly would be calcium or magnesium levels. So really, those are kind of flip sides of each other. Calcium is excitatory, and magnesium calms, generally speaking. Okay. So all of these things can be taken a look at and can be addressed. Iron is also found, we're talking about depleting iron if zinc levels are too high. Iron is found in the dopamine centers of the brain. So this can be a portion of the issue related to Parkinson's, because we're talking about the dopamine centers of the brain being the substantia nigra, or nigra, however you want to pronounce that, which is a certain portion up in the top of our brain that relates to Parkinson's and the dysfunction associated with Parkinson's and the dopamine production. In fact, there has been an operation that's been used somewhat for Parkinson's where they transplant that area of the brain, more of those kinds of cells in the substantia nigra. Zinc also blocks gamma amino, walking over my previous words here. All right, so this is important. Dopamine is very important to motivating us, to getting us bright and alert, and to helping us see the day in a positive light. In fact, opening your window in the morning and letting that sunlight in, allowing the activation of the dopamine production and that sort of thing, is a part of that sequence that gets you up and going in the morning. So another aspect would be copper levels. They can positively affect the dopamine beta hydroxylase activity, thereby also affecting neurotransmission in the CNS, or central nervous system. Additionally, copper positively affects levels of dopamine, serotonin, GABA receptors, and catecholamines, possibly leading to mood fluctuations when deficient. So this is what I was talking about with magnesium. Magnesium is helping the production of dopamine, serotonin. Serotonin is a calming kind of hormone and enjoyable type of thing, where you experience enjoyment, and GABA receptors, which are inhibitory. And catecholamines are the hormones produced in the adrenal glands. So we have all of these affected by dopamine levels, or, excuse me, by magnesium levels. So we need to be sure to have adequate magnesium. Adequate calcium is kind of opposition to magnesium because we don't want to calm down too much, but at the same time we want to have, you know, some excitability, right? We need to be able to react in certain times, and we want to feel good. So antioxidant enzymes are also quite important to cognitive and neuronal function, and use many minerals and vitamins as cofactors. So, you know, when you hear people poo-pooing nutrition as, you know, oh, that doesn't matter, or you get it all from your food, or things like that, think about how many functions those nutrients have in your body, and how important it is to have those processes working optimally in your body. And that when they are suboptimal, that is a part of this whole situation that leads to what we call aging. So, you know, it's like saying you don't need to drink water, or you don't need to, you know, you don't need to urinate. I don't know. It's like a basic function of our bodies at a lower level, at a more micro level. What's going on inside our bodies relies on having the right nutrition. It's extremely important. So these nutritional aspects are involved in aging when we don't have what we need, especially. Okay. So another aspect relates to metabolic processes, right? So if your metabolism is not functioning correctly or well, optimally, say, then you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need properly, because part of metabolization is that absorption. That's what you're doing, is you're metabolizing and helping to break down, your body's breaking down those nutrients to get the components that the body needs through metabolization. Well, if that's not working correctly, then you're not going to get those nutrients. You're not going to experience what those help your body do optimally. So optimal function can only be achieved, and this is my personal belief, but optimal function, in my belief, can only be achieved if we are giving our bodies what they need, and particularly nutritionally what they need. So part of the approach that I take is for those who may have sort of a non-specific, evolving kind of lower function without necessarily having a disease or disorder diagnosed, then it's more of a broad spectrum preventative kind of approach, you know, giving them all the antioxidants, making sure they're getting certain food substances and so on. If there's an actual deficiency detected, then we treat with actual, you know, nutraceuticals that address those deficiencies directly and make sure that those deficiencies are taken care of to help the body take those nutrients and use them the way the body's supposed to. And another example for you, vitamin D deficiency is very, very commonly associated with autoimmune response. So if your body's attacking itself, or if you're building antibodies in your body that attack certain functionality within your body, it's very likely that you are deficient in vitamin D. So that's something to look into. So all of these nutrients are just so important to our bodies in keeping us running as systems, you could say, optimally, each of our bodies. So as we go through life, we want to be addressing these issues. The nutritional aspects especially address the oxidation reaction, right? The oxidation reduction response, we could call it, where we're changing the electrical makeup of our, or electronic makeup even, of our cells, because the free radicals are popping off those ions, or those electrons, to create ions, actually. So they're damaging the cells. So selenium, I was beginning to discuss, is a cofactor of glutathione peroxidase, okay, and iodothyronine deiodinase, which is an enzyme that helps to break down the T4, or the thyroxine, that is sort of a macro hormone for thyroid, that then results in triiodothyronine, which is the more active version of that hormone, thyroid hormone. So selenium is involved in that process. So you need some selenium for that. And certainly that leads to, iodine is a main component of thyroid hormone. Iodine is anti-cancer. So if we're not functioning correctly in the area of thyroid function, or if our body's not absorbing correctly the thyroid hormone, or if it's not breaking down correctly the T4 to T3 to create adequate thyroid hormone, all of those things can be involved in not only dysfunction metabolically, but also can lend to more, say, likelihood, or more ability to lead to cancer. So it's a very essential part of preventing that cancer. You can do for the grumpy old man is give him lots of fish oil or lots of omega-3 if you want to go into vegetarian route, which a lot of people do. So maintaining a balanced mood, general cognitive and synaptic function are certainly importantly influenced by the level of fatty acids, specifically omega-3, primarily in there. The most efficacious oils. In other words, the most effect is gathered from omega-3. And these include DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid, and eicosapentaenoic acid, or EPA. Okay. I know, long words, just remember DHA and EPA, forget the long terms. You don't need to know it. And you'll see on labels for fish oil and other omega-3s the amount of DHA and the amount of EPA. So EPA, by the way, is a precursor to DHA. So your body will convert, or can convert, typically, the EPA oils to DHA. And DHA is very important to your brain, very important. So DHA and EPA levels have been directly correlated with cognitive function. And elevated DHA and high vitamin E amounts tend to be associated with less frequent occurrence of Alzheimer's. Isn't that interesting? So omega-3, omega-3, omega-3. Okay, omega-3, very important for brain and neurological function. And also, importantly, can help to contribute to the quote-unquote good cholesterol, which is HDL, or high-density lipoprotein. This can help to create a level of HDL that is decent and can help offset the level of LDL, creating a more cardio-friendly environment in your body to help your cardiovascular and cardio function. In other words, helping your heart and blood flow and that kind of thing. So that's an important aspect, as is CoQ10, as I mentioned earlier. So the importance of differentiating between choices of fats is also worth noting, since a negative effect on cognition or thinking, along with a worsening of dementia, are seen with high fat intake. Yet, when omega-3 is the fat of choice, the result tends to be a very positive anti-inflammatory effect, reducing the chances of dementia onset, especially at higher levels of EPA. So, other oils, omega-9 monounsaturated oils, such as olive oil, avocado oil, are important for long-term health as well, and are an essential component of the Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet is associated with longevity, as is the Okinawa diet. These are importantly associated with longevity. People living in centenarians, people living into their 100+ years are associated with these diets. So inflammatory conditions, cognitive decline, and neurological dysfunction are often the result of too little of these oils, the 3s and 9s, and much of the omega-6 fatty acids that are so prevalent in your fries, all your deep fried foods, all that fast food garbage, my term, that Americans commonly put into their mouths.
Overprocessed food.
So if you want logical decline, if you want more likelihood of problems of aging occurring, go ahead, eat that stuff. Obviously, that's not where I'm going with it. So, all right, so nutritional aspects of aging. Many factors are involved in aging. And as you can see, the antioxidant nutrients are very important here because they help to reduce the oxidation and the damage that's done to your body over time. Now, there are other aspects, and what I'm going to focus on for the next show will be more about getting to the root causes. Yes, somewhat oxidation, but other causes as well, like telomeres depleting and so on. So, to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF Digital Broadcasting. This is Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DO in Florida, and my practice is A Path to Wellness. And if you'd like to reach us at A Path to Wellness, you can call us at 727-329-9637. Take a look at the website at www.aptw.net. APTW being short for A Path to Wellness. And we'll talk to you next time about the underlying causes and potential treatments of aging.